The first laugh hit Yalan like a thrown stone, sharp, casual, practiced. It came from a vendor with blue-gray skin and polished shoulder plates, who looked Yalan up and down, then smiled the way people smile at something they think is harmless. Second laugh followed, then a third, then a ripple. Spreading through the sunlit market like heat shimmer, Yalan kept walking, because stopping would feed them. And he had promised himself he would not feed them today. His boots landed unpacked. Dirt and old cobbles, half hidden under dust, and above him bright banners fluttered. Purple, orange, magenta, yellow, like a celebration that did not include him. The market alley was alive, spices, metalwork, humming power cells, fruit piled like jewels, cloth dyed in impossible colors, and voices in 10 different languages. Yalan's hand was low at his side, relaxed, open. Because he had learned that in a place where he was always the suspected threat, the smallest tension could turn into a weapon pointed at him. And the little alien girl looked up at him with wide black pupils, eyelids kissed with a faint pink sheen, mint green skin glowing softly in the daylight, and a smile that made the whole crowded alley feel less sharp. Her cyan bob swayed against her cheeks as she walked, and her white sleeveless dress caught the sun, the pale blue trim along the neckline sparkling like a secret. She was so small that her steps were two for every one of his. But she never let go, not once. Leora, he reminded himself. Her name was Leora. Even though half the city refused to speak it like it mattered. Another laugh cracked behind them, louder, closer. And this time Yalan heard the words under it: human stray, pet, keeper. Yalan's jaw tightened, not because of the insult, he'd swallowed worse, but because the girl's fingers squeezed a little tighter, and he felt the smallest tremor in her grip. Like her body remembered fear, even when her face tried to stay bright. He lowered his voice so only she could hear. Keep looking forward, little star. We are almost there. Leora's smile stayed, but her eyes flicked toward the sound, then back up to him. As if measuring whether he would flinch, Yalan forced his shoulders loose, forced his steps steady, forced his breathing calm. He had learned long ago that fear was contagious, and so was courage. They reached a stall where dried sea flowers hung in nets, pale and curled, smelling like salt and sun. And the vendor, an older woman with ridged cheeks and gold thread in her robe. Throat, pretty little sprout, she cooed. What is a very child doing with a human? Her tone was sweet, but the words were not. Leora lifted her chin, smile still gentle, and said, he is my protector. The market did not get quieter, not at first. It got louder, because people heard. And laughter became a chorus. Protector someone. Repeated like it was a joke worth savoring. A human protector, another voice added. Yalan felt a dozen eyes settle on him, pinning him in place, testing the shape of him, waiting for him to either prove their cruelty right or prove them wrong. He looked down at Leora, and for a moment he saw the truth behind her small smile. She was not performing, she was declaring. And that changed something in him, something that had been tired for too long. He crouched slightly, keeping his posture open, and spoke softly. Leora, you do not have to say that. Her eyebrows lifted and her voice stayed calm. Yes, I do, she said. Because they listen when I say it. Yalan felt the weight of that. A child understanding power better than adults. A child using the only shield she had. Her own small voice. Behind them, boots scraped, and a pair of port security officers pushed through the crowd. Gray uniforms, matte helmets, hands resting too close to their stun batons. One of them glanced at Yalan and smiled with no warmth. We have had reports, the officer said. Reports of a human harassing a minor. The market quieted just enough for the accusation to land cleanly. Yalan did not move his hands, did not tense, did not give the officer what he wanted. Leora stepped forward instead, still holding Yalan's fingers, and looked up at the helmeted face. He is not harassing me, she said. He is protecting me. The officer tilted his head, amused. A very child does not need a human protector, the officer said. Very children belong in the sanctuary district, under proper guardianship, not dragged through open markets for sympathy. Drag, Yalin repeated in his mind. Because the word was chosen to make him a villain, Liara's small hand tightened. Again, and her smile faltered for the first time, not from fear, but from anger that was too big for her body. I chose to come, she said, and he did not drag me. The officer's visor turned toward Yalin again. Then you will not mind releasing her, human, the officer said. And stepping back, the crowd leaned in. Hungry for a scene, hungry for a simple story where the human was wrong and the city was right, Yalin swallowed. Then he took a slow breath and did the thing he had practiced alone in his rented room. The thing he had promised himself he would do the next time someone tried to rewrite his intentions. He spoke carefully, cleanly, firm. Officer, he said. Guardian status is registered. Her voluntary travel status is registered, and her safety protocol is filed with port administration. You can scan my wrist tag and confirm. The officer paused, as if surprised the human could speak like paperwork. As if surprised, the human had learned the city's language well enough to defend himself inside it. The officer raised a scanner, and Yalin lifted his wrist, revealing the worn band with an embedded chip, scratched but active. The scanner chirped, and the officer's posture stiffened just a fraction, because the data was real, and real data was harder to bully. Still, the officer did not back off. A human with clearance is still a human, the officer said, and he leaned down toward Liara. Little one, come with us. We will take you somewhere safe. Liara's eyes flashed, and her voice sharpened. I am safe, she said with him. The crowd made a sound, half scoff, half uncertainty, and Yalin felt the moment balancing, like a coin on its edge. Then a scream cut through the alley, raw and high. A stall collapsed farther down the market, fabric and wood snapping, crates tipping, and people surged away in panic. Yalin's head snapped toward it, and his instincts moved before his thoughts. He heard the second scream, lower, choking, someone. Pinned under something heavy, the officers flinched backward. More concerned with their own boots than the crowd, Liara's hand tugged Yalin. Not away, toward the sound. Someone is hurt, she whispered. Yalin nodded once. Stay close, he said. Do not let go. They pushed into the shifting mass, Yalin using his shoulders like a shield, not striking anyone, just parting them, guiding Liara through the safest gaps. When they reached the collapsed stall, he saw what caused it. A cargo drone had clipped the overhead line, and the stall's support beam had snapped under the impact, dropping a roof section onto a vendor. The vendor was not human, blue-gray. Skin, older, wide eyes, mouth open in silent pain. One arm trapped under a beam. A puddle of spilled spice and broken glass glittered in the sun. People stood around, staring, talking, pointing, but not touching, because touching meant responsibility. One of the port officers barked for space, but did not kneel, did not lift, did not help. Yalin did not ask permission. He set his feet, lowered his shoulders, and grabbed the beam. His forearm flexed under the fabric of his sleeve, and he felt splinters bite through the wood into his skin. The beam was heavier than it looked, soaked with old oil and damp, anchored under broken crates. Yalin strained, and the wood creaked, and for a heartbeat, it did not move. Then Liara pressed her small palm against Yalin's wrist. Not adding strength, adding presence. He is my protector, she whispered again, not for the crowd. For him. Yalin exhaled, tightened his grip, and lifted. The beam rose just enough for a gap. The trapped vendor gasped, arm pulling free with a wet sound. Yalin held the beam with one hand and reached for a seal patch with the other, slapping it against the vendor's bleeding forearm to slow the flow. He looked up at the nearest officer. Voice sharp now. Call medical, he said. Now. The officer blinked, offended at being commanded by a human. Call medical, Yalin repeated. Louder now. The officer's pride wavered against the sight of blood, against the crowd's eyes, against the fact that the human was already doing the job the uniform was supposed to do. The officer tapped his cum, muttering the code. Yalin eased the beam down slowly, then shifted to support the vendor's shoulder, keeping him still, keeping him breathing. Leora crouched beside them, her small face calm, her eyes focused. And she placed 2 fingers on the vendor's wrist, the way a trained medic would. "Pulse," she said softly, fast, but present. The vendor's eyes, watery with shock, turned toward Leora, then toward Yalan. "Human," he rasped. Why Yalan did not answer with pride, he answered with truth. "Because you were crushed," he said, "and someone needed to lift." For a moment, the laughter from earlier felt far away, thin, embarrassed. Medical drones arrived, efficient and cold, and when they took the vendor onto a hover stretcher, the crowd finally released a breath. The port officer stepped back, uncertain now, because the story they wanted had been interrupted by a different story, one where the human did not harm, the human helped. As the drones rose and drifted away, the vendor's eyes stayed on Yalan, and his voice came out rough, ashamed. "I laughed at you," he whispered. Yalan nodded once. "Not forgiving, not punishing, simply acknowledging." "I heard," he said. The vendor swallowed. "Thank you," he managed. Before the stretcher carried him away, the crowd's attention turned again, and this time it was not hungry, it was unsettled. Yalan stood, dust on his sleeves, a thin line of blood on his palm, and he felt Leora's hand slide back into his steady, proud protector. Someone murmured, not laughing now, testing the word like it might mean something different than they thought. Yalan did not savor it, because he had learned praise could be as shallow as mockery. He looked down at Leora. "We should go," he said. She nodded, and together they resumed walking deeper into the market, toward the far end where the sunlight brightened, and the alley opened into a wide plaza. Leora's sanctuary appointment was on the other side of the plaza, a building with curved eaves and pale stone, guarded by polished gates and people who smiled too carefully. As they neared, Yalan felt the atmosphere change. The market's noise softened behind them, and the sanctuary district's silence pressed forward. Clean, controlled, expensive. A tall attendant in a pale robe approached, eyes flicking over Leora, lingering on Yalan with a small frown that tried to look like professionalism. "Child Leora," the attendant said, "you are late." Leora's fingers tightened again, and Yalan felt it. "We had an incident," Yalan said. "A collapse. Medical was called." The attendant's expression did not change. "The sanctuary has no record of such matters," the attendant replied, and he reached toward Leora. "Come now, child." Leora did not move. Her voice came out quiet, but it carried. "He comes too," she said. The attendant's smile sharpened. "The protector arrangement was temporary," the attendant said. "A human cannot enter the sanctuary halls without escort clearance." Yalan felt the old familiar irritation. The way systems built by comfortable people treated him like a tool that should not touch the furniture. He kept his voice low. "Then request clearance," he said. The attendant's eyes hardened. "There is no need," he said. "You may wait outside." Leora's head lifted, and for the first time her voice rang with something that made adults straighten. "No," she said. The single word hit the plaza like a bell. The attendant blinked, and a second attendant appeared. Then a third, their robes identical, their faces calm in the way that meant danger. "Child," the first attendant said, "you are distressed. You will come inside now." Leora's smile disappeared entirely, and she turned her face up to Yalan. "If I go alone," she whispered, "they will take my voice." Yalan felt a chill because he understood what she meant even without the details. He had seen institutions that smiled while they removed a person's agency piece by piece. He crouched slightly, bringing his face level with hers. "Leora," he said softly, "tell me what you need." She did not hesitate. "Stand with me," she whispered. "Do not let them separate us." Yalan rose, slow, deliberate, and placed himself half a step behind her, close enough that she could feel his presence. Not so close that anyone could claim he was forcing her. He looked at the attendant. "She requested my presence," he said. "You can log it as voluntary continuity support." The attendant's jaw tightened. "You are a human," he said. "You are not recognized as a legal guardian." Yalan nodded, then recognized her request. Yalan replied, "She is the citizen you claim to protect." The attendants exchanged glances, and Yalan saw calculation, not compassion. Then the first attendant leaned down toward Leora again. Voice gentle like a trap, "Little one," he said. "Tell us the truth. Did this human tell you to call him protector?" Leora's eyes widened, not with confusion. With hurt. "No," she said, "I chose it because he keeps me safe, and because nobody else did." The plaza went still. Even the guards by the gate shifted, uncomfortable. The attendant straightened. Smile returning, too smooth. "We will handle your care, child," the attendant said. "That is our purpose." Leora's voice sharpened again. "Your purpose is to keep me quiet," she said. A ripple moved through the attendants. Yalan felt Leora's small handshake. And he realized how much courage it took for her to say that. How much fear she must be swallowing just to keep standing. He leaned slightly toward the attendant, voice low, controlled, dangerous in its calm. "If you try to take her without consent," he said, "I will file a Port Authority incident report. I will request a third-party welfare audit, and I will broadcast the log publicly." The attendant's eyes narrowed. "You would not," he said. Yalan's lips pressed into a thin line. "And he said the truth that had kept him alive in worse places than this plaza." "Watch me," he said. Leora's fingers squeezed his hand so tight, it almost hurt. Then a new voice spoke from behind the gate, smooth, female, amused. "What is this commotion?" A woman stepped into view, tall, elegant, skin a soft slate blue, hair braided with silver rings. Her robe more refined than the attendants, her eyes bright with intelligence and something colder. "Director Sira Vant," the attendants said in unison, and they bowed. Yalan recognized the name from port notices. A sanctuary administrator with political ties. A person who could make problems vanish. Sira's gaze fell on Leora, and her smile warmed. "Not kindly, strategically, child Leora," she said. "You have caused quite a scene." Leora lifted her chin, voice steady. "I want him with me," she said. Sira's eyes flicked over Yalan, and he felt her measuring him, not as a person, as a variable. "Humans are so dramatic," Sira said lightly, "always trying to be heroes in other people's stories." A soft laugh rose behind her from the attendants. Yalan did not flinch. He kept his voice even. "She asked for support," he said. "I am here for her safety." Sira stepped closer, and the air around her felt expensive and sharp. "Safety," Sira echoed, as if tasting the word. "Do you know what the sanctuary does, human? We protect very children from exploitation, from trafficking, from being used as sympathy props in the market." The accusation slid out cleanly, polished, made to sound like compassion. Yalan felt anger rise, but he did not let it show. Leora's voice cut in, small but fierce. "I am not a prop," she said, "and he did not use me. He bought me warm bread when I was shaking, and he carried me when the storm drones came, and he stayed when everyone else turned away." Sira's smile held, but her eyes narrowed a fraction. "Sweet stories," she said. "Children love to attach themselves to the first kindness they receive. It is a survival response." Yalan heard it. The way she reduced Leora's feelings into a symptom. The way she turned bond into weakness. Yalan inhaled, then spoke with careful clarity. "Director Vant," he said, "if your institution believes her bond is unhealthy, then you should still document it. Verify it, and address it ethically, not erase it by force." Sira tilted her head. "Amused, erase," she repeated, dramatic language again. Then she leaned down toward Leora, voice soft as silk. "Little one," she said, "if you come inside without him, I will give you a real guardian, a real home, sweets and books, a room with sunlight. You will never have to walk the rough market again." Leora's eyes flickered, and Yalan felt her hesitate. Not because she wanted to abandon him, but because the offer was tempting to any child who had slept in fear. Yalan did not speak. He let Leora choose, because real protection was not control. Leora looked up at Sira, then back at Yalan, and her small voice came out clear. "If you take my protector away," she said, You are not giving me a home, you are taking my choice. Sarah's smile hardened. Choice is a luxury for children, she replied. The sentence hit Yalin like a slap because he had heard it before, in different words. From different uniforms, he felt something settle in his chest. Not panic decision, he leaned forward slightly, speaking so only Sarah and the attendants closest could hear. Then you are not a sanctuary, he said, you are a cage. Silence, then Sarah straightened, face smooth again, and her voice turned crisp, escort. The child inside, she said. The human will be removed from the plaza. 2 guards stepped forward, hands reaching. Leora gasped, and her fingers clamped around Yalin's like a lock. Yalin moved without violence, just speed and positioning. Stepping between Leora and the reaching hands, rotating his body so she was behind his hip, protected by his frame. The guards stiffened, weapons half raised. Sarah's eyes flashed. Do not make this worse, human, she said. Yalin's voice rose, clear. Carrying across the plaza, she is a citizen. He said. She stated her preference. And you are attempting separation without due process. I am requesting Port Authority oversight now. He lifted his wrist and tapped his cum band, sending a priority ping to the public security channel, the one that recorded everything. Sarah's eyes widened just enough to reveal real emotion. Alarm, stop that, she snapped. Too late, the ping had been sent, and the plaza's nearest public monitor flickered, showing an automated notification. Port Authority oversight requested, live log enabled. People in the plaza turned, heads lifting, whispers starting. Because public logs were dangerous to people who preferred quiet control. Sarah's voice softened. Again, but it was a blade wrapped in velvet, human, she said. You do not understand the consequences. Yalin held his posture steady. Then explain them, he said, in the log, so everyone can understand. A ripple moved through the gathered crowd, because the human had done a thing that was hard to undo. He had dragged truth into daylight. Leora pressed her face against Yalin's side for half a second, then looked out again, eyes shining. He is my protector, she said again, louder now, so the plaza could hear, and this time the word did not sound like a child's fantasy. It sounded like a claim of dignity. Port Authority drones arrived within minutes, hovering above the plaza with scanning lights, their speakers buzzing. A neutral synthetic voice announced. Oversight protocol active. All parties remain calm. All statements are recorded. Sarah's smile returned, but it was strained. Of course, she said. We welcome oversight. We only want what is best for the child. Yalin looked at the drones, then at Leora, then at Sarah, and he felt the moment tighten, because this was the kind of moment that decided a life. A Port Authority officer approached. Not sanctuary, not market security. A neutral uniform with plain badges, eyes sharp, posture professional. State your complaint, the officer said. Yalin spoke clearly, no rushing, no heat, each word placed like a brick. The child requested my presence as emotional and safety support. He said, the sanctuary attempted separation by force, and they offered inducements to override her expressed preference. I request an immediate welfare check interview with the child, conducted in open view, with the log active. Sarah lifted a hand. This is unnecessary, she said. The child is distressed and will say anything. The officer's gaze flicked to Leora. Child, he said. Do you feel safe? Leora's small shoulders rose and fell once, and her voice came out steady. I feel safe with him, she said. I do not feel safe with her. A murmur spread. Sarah's smile tightened. She is confused, Sarah said. She is attached. We can help her detach in a healthy environment. Yalin kept his voice level, but his words turned heavier. Detaching a child from the only person she trusts is not therapy, he said. It is trauma. The officer held up a hand, then addressed Leora. Child, he said. What is your relationship with this human? Leora looked up at Yalin first, then back to the officer. He found me, she said. When the storm drones hit the lower docks, everyone ran. I was too small and I fell. He lifted me. He did. Not leave me. Her voice trembled, but she continued. I went to the sanctuary before, she said. They made me practice smiling. They told me not to talk about my mother. They told me the market is dangerous, and I should be grateful. But when I cried, they closed the door and waited until I stopped. The plaza went colder. Sierra's eyes flashed, and she stepped forward sharply. This is inappropriate, she snapped. This is not the place. The officer's gaze turned hard. It is exactly the place, the officer said, because the log is active. Yalan felt Leora's hand trembling now, and he squeezed back, gentle, steady, letting her borrow his calm. Sarah's voice shifted again. Controlled, child Leora, she said. You are misremembering. You are sensitive. You interpret discipline as cruelty. Leora looked up at Sierra, and her small voice rose. I am not misremembering, she said. You told me my voice makes adults uncomfortable, and you told me to be quiet so I can be adopted. That sentence hit the plaza like a dropped weight. A few people gasped. The officer looked at Sierra. Director, he said. Do you deny these claims? Sierra's smile returned, but it shook at the edges. Children say many things, she replied. Yalan felt a surge of anger, and he let it into his voice. Just enough to cut. Then let the log speak, he said. Request sanctuary internal footage. Request care notes. Request adoption placement records. Sarah's eyes narrowed, and she said softly, those records are protected for the child's privacy, Jalans. Response came quick, sharp. Privacy is not a shield for abuse, he said. The officer raised his cum, and his tone turned formal. I am initiating a temporary protective hold, he said. The child will remain in open public jurisdiction until a review is complete, and the human escort will remain as requested. Under observation, Sarah's jaw tightened, and for a moment her polished mask slipped, revealing irritation, even fury. You are making a mistake, she said to the officer. The officer did not blink. Noted, he replied. Leora let out a breath that sounded like relief mixed with disbelief. Yalan felt it too, the fragile sense that maybe the world could shift. Maybe the city could listen. But Sierra was not finished. She stepped closer to Yalan, just enough that only he could hear her next words under the hum of drones. You think you won, human, she whispered. You do not understand what you just stepped into. Yalan met her gaze. Calm then. Explain it, he said. In the daylight, Sierra's lips pressed thin, and she stepped back, smile returning for the crowd. Of course, she said. We will cooperate. The port officer guided them away from the gate toward a shaded seating area in the plaza, where interviews could continue, where the log would keep recording as they walked. Leora's steps stayed close to Jalan's, and her grip never loosened when they reached the seating area. The officer turned to Yalan. Your name, he said, and your clearance origin. Yalan answered, Yalan Voss, independent cargo handler and contract security, registered on Helix Port 7 months. Sponsor code filed under Dockside Maintenance Cooperative. The officer nodded, then looked down at Leora. And you, child, your full name and registry. Leora spoke softly. Leora of the Vary, registry number, then a string of tones the translator rendered into digits. The officer paused when he saw something on his tablet. This registry indicates high priority, he said. Special status. Sarah's smile tightened again, but she stayed silent. Jalan's stomach tightened, because special status meant valuable, and valuable meant hunted. The officer looked up, voice careful. Child Leora, he said. Do you know why you have special status? Leora's eyes lowered, and her voice became small. Because of what I saw, she said. Yalan felt his blood cool. What she saw, he repeated gently. Leora looked up at him, and her eyes were suddenly older than her body. I saw my mother taken, she said. And I saw the people who bought her, and they wear robes like her, she said, nodding slightly towards Sarah. A murmur rose. Immediate, dangerous. Sarah's smile vanished. That is a lie, she snapped. The officer raised a hand. Director, he said. Remain calm. Leora's voice trembled, but she continued. Because she had started, and stopping would be worse. They Said I am small and quiet and easy, she said. They said I would be adopted fast if I smile. They said my mother did not smile enough. Jalen's chest tightened so hard it hurt. He had known she carried fear, but he had not known she carried that. Sarah leaned forward sharply. Voice cold now, child, she said. You are spiraling, Jalen's voice. Cut in. And this time it carried across the plaza. Do not speak to her like that, he said. The single phrase turned heads, and for the first time, the crowd saw the human not as a stray, but as a wall. The officer's eyes flicked between them. Then he spoke into his come, quick and quiet, requesting additional oversight personnel. Sarah's gaze locked on Yalen, and her voice turned dangerously calm. You are emotional human, she said. Emotion makes you reckless. Jalen's reply came clean. Emotion makes me honest, he said. Leora pressed closer to Jalen's side, her voice barely above a whisper. They will take me again, she said. Yalen lowered his head toward her, and his voice softened. Not while I breathe, he said. The officer's tablet pinned with incoming authority codes, and 2 more port officials arrived, followed by a pair of plainclothes investigators, their eyes scanning, reading the room fast. One of the investigators approached, a woman with short dark hair and a badge worn on a chain. I am Investigator Halle, she said. I am assuming the welfare review. Her gaze went to Leora, and her voice softened. Little one, she said. You are safe here, you can speak. Leora's eyes flicked toward Yalen again. Only if he stays, she whispered. Halle nodded. He stays, she said, and she turned to Yalen. Remain silent. Unless asked, but do not move away. Yalen nodded, and he stayed still, steady, a quiet anchor. Halle began asking questions, careful, specific, and as Leora answered, pieces of a hidden story began to form, a program, disguised as sanctuary care, that funneled certain very children into private adoption contracts, a network that selected children who were quiet, compliant, and easy to move, a set of rules that punished children for speaking about missing parents, and a director with political ties who controlled the flow of records like a dam. When Leora spoke the words "my mother was taken," Yalen felt something in the plaza shift, like the air itself had decided it was tired of pretending. Sarah's voice snapped. This is nonsense, she said. You cannot allow a frightened child to accuse a public director without proof. Hale's reply was sharp, professional. Proof is what we are here to collect, Director Vent, she said. Sarah's eyes narrowed, and she said softly, You are making enemies, investigator. Halle did not blink. Then they should stop doing things worth investigating, Halle replied. A ripple of restrained approval moved through the surrounding crowd. Yalen noticed something else. A figure standing at the edge of the plaza, partially hidden behind a cloth canopy, watching. The figure's posture was too controlled, too still, and when Yalen met the figure's gaze, the figure turned away, disappearing into the sanctuary district's side alley. Jalen's instincts flared. He leaned slightly toward Halle, voice low. Someone is watching, he said, and they just moved. Hale's eyes flicked, and she signaled 2 officers without breaking her calm. Follow, she murmured, discreet. The officers slipped away, weaving through the plaza. Leora's hand clenched, and she whispered, They are here. Jalen's voice stayed steady. Look at me, he said softly. You are here with me. You are in the light. Leora's breathing slowed, matching his. Halle continued the interview, but now the atmosphere had changed. The plaza was no longer a place of simple bureaucracy. It was a place where a truth might crack open something powerful. Then a loud chime sounded from the public monitor, and a new notification flashed. Sanctuary record access request denied. A second later, another message. Private jurisdiction claim filed. Child Leora subject to sanctuary custody. Sarah's smile returned. Cold as metal, you see, she said. Custody is ours, by charter. The plaza erupted in shocked murmurs, because people could feel the trap closing. Hale's jaw tightened, and she spoke into her cum rapidly. Citing emergency authority, contesting the claim, Sarah's eyes gleamed. Satisfied, time is on my side, she said softly. Leora's small body stiffened, and she whispered, "They will take me now." Yalan felt a surge of fear so strong it was almost nausea. But he did not let it into his hands. He did not tighten into violence. He did the only thing he could do that would work in the daylight. He lifted his voice, clear, controlled, carrying across the plaza. "This child has made a direct allegation of trafficking and coercion," he said, and a private jurisdiction claim was filed the moment she spoke. "That is not coincidence, that is containment." The crowd reacted, heads turning, whispers sharpening. Sarah's smile faltered for the first time. Hale's eyes widened slightly. Because the human had said the quiet part out loud, Yalan kept going. "If the sanctuary has nothing to hide," he said, "then they should open records immediately and allow an independent interview without pressure. And until then, this child stays under public protection." As she requested, a voice rose from the crowd, an older market worker, rough hands, dirt under nails. He lifted a beam. Someone shouted, "He saved Varrock." "I saw it." Another voice, younger, trembling. "The child chose him," she said. "I heard her." A third voice, hesitant but growing. "We always laugh at humans," someone said. But he stood up to the director. The plaza's mood shifted like wind turning a sail. Sierra's eyes flashed, and she stepped back, speaking sharply into her own "Activate retrieval." She hissed. Now Yalan heard it, because her head snapped up. Then the plaza's far edge erupted into movement, robes parting, guards advancing fast, not Port Authority. Sanctuary security. They moved with purpose, to retrieve, to separate, to end the log by ending the scene. Hale shouted orders, port officers raising barriers, drones lowering, lights flashing. Leora pressed into Yalan's side, and her voice broke. "I do not want to go," she whispered. Yalan's heart hammered, but his voice stayed calm. "Then you will not," he said. He shifted his body so he was between her and the advancing guards. One hand open, one arm curved slightly behind him to keep Leora close. He did not strike, he did not threaten. He simply became an obstacle, a human wall under bright sun. A sanctuary. Guard barked, "Move, human." Yalan lifted his voice, and this time it rang with a command that made even the guard hesitate. "Stop," he said. "This child is under public interview. You are interfering with oversight." The guard advanced anyway, and in that instant Yalan's instincts screamed. Not fight, not flee, protect. He shifted his weight, planted his feet, and when the guard reached, Yalan caught the guard's wrist. Not twisting, not breaking, just controlling, redirecting the hand away from Leora. The guard's eyes widened. Because the human's grip was firm, precise, disciplined, Yalan released instantly, showing restraint. "Do not touch her," he said. The plaza held its breath. Then a Port Authority drone projected a warning. "Interference with oversight subject to arrest." The sanctuary guards hesitated, their confidence cracking under recorded daylight. Sierra stepped forward, voice sharp. "Arrest him," she snapped. "He assaulted my guard." Hale's voice cut through, loud, absolute. "No," she said. "He prevented a forcible grab, and it is logged." Sierra's eyes flashed with hatred. Then she turned to Leora, voice dripping with false sweetness. "Child," she said, "come quietly, and you will not be harmed." Leora looked up at Yalan, tears bright on her cheeks, and her small voice rose, trembling but fierce. "I choose him," she said. "He is my protector." The words echoed, and something broke in the crowd, not into chaos, into solidarity. Market workers stepped forward, not violent, just present, forming a loose line, shoulders touching, blocking the sanctuary guards with bodies that had been ignored too long. A vendor raised his hands, shouting, "Not the child." A woman in a patched robe called, "Let her speak." The plaza turned into a living shield. Sierra's face drained of color, because she had expected fear, not unity. Hale spoke into her again, urgent, and this time the response was immediate. A heavier drone descended, official, sealed insignia, and a new voice came through. Older, authoritative. "This is Chief Marshal Wren," the voice said. "Sanctuary security will stand down. Custody claim is suspended pending investigation. Any further interference will result in detainment." Sierra's lips parted, stunned. "You cannot," she began. Chief Marshal Wren's reply was cold. "I can, and I did," he said. The sanctuary guards froze, then slowly stepped back. Their confidence evaporating. Sierra stood rigid, eyes burning. Leora's knees nearly buckled, and Yalan felt her sag into him. Relief hitting her like exhaustion. Yalan crouched slightly, voice soft. "Breathe. Little star," he murmured. "You did it. You stayed loud." Leora's eyes squeezed shut and she whispered, "You stayed." Yalan nodded, and he whispered back, "Always in the aftermath." Hale guided them into a secure port interview room nearby. Still in public jurisdiction, still under active log, but quieter now, safer, as they walked. The crowd parted, not laughing now, watching with something like respect, something like shame inside the room. Hale spoke gently to Leora while another investigator began pulling records, tracing signals, issuing warrants. Yalan stayed beside Leora, silent unless asked, his hand a constant anchor. Hours passed, and the truth emerged like a tide. Hidden adoption contracts, missing parrot reports misfiled. Sanctuary footage flagged and locked behind privacy codes. Money flows routed through shell charities. Sarah Vant was not the whole network, but she was a node, a gatekeeper, when port officers returned with the report that sanctuary footage had been wiped remotely within minutes of the oversight request. Hale's face went hard. "That is obstruction," she said, and she looked at Yalan. "You did the right thing making it public." Yalan didn't feel heroic. He felt tired and furious, and protective in a way that had become part of his bones. Leora sat on the bench, legs swinging, face small and pale under the harsh room lighting. She whispered, "Will they take me still?" Yalan turned toward her, voice gentle. "Not today," he said. "And not without you choosing." Leora looked up, eyes shining. "They laughed at you," she said. "Why did you still stand?" Yalan's throat tightened. "Because there was an answer, and it hurt." He spoke carefully. "Because when I was small," he said, "someone laughed at me too, and nobody stood, and I promised myself if I ever had the chance, I would be the person who stands." Leora's lips trembled, and she reached for his hand again. "Protector," she whispered. Yalan squeezed back. "Here," he replied. Near evening, as the sun shifted and the market's loud colors softened into gold, Holly returned with a final update. "Child Leora is under port protection," she said. "The sanctuary's custody is suspended, and we have issued detainment orders for Director Sarah Vant, pending further investigation." Yalan exhaled, a long breath he felt like he'd been holding for months. Leora's eyes widened, and for the first time her smile returned, small, bright, real. "Does that mean?" she began. "It means you are safe tonight," Hala said, "and it means you will have choices." Leora looked up at Yalan like the world had just become possible again. Yalan stood, careful, and he felt every eye in the room on him. Hale's expression softened slightly. "You did something rare today," she said. "You made people look." Yalan nodded. "Once she made them look," he replied. Hale gave a small nod of respect, then turned away to continue the work. As Yalan guided Leora back toward the plaza, now calmer, now full of whispering people and dawning rumors, Leora's small hand stayed locked around his. At the market's edge, the same vendor who had laughed earlier stood beside a stall. Eyes lowered, he cleared his throat, then spoke awkward human. He said, "I saw the log. I was wrong." Yalan paused, looked at him, then nodded once. "Learn," said. The vendor swallowed, then looked at Leora. "Little one," he murmured. "I am sorry." Leora watched him for a long moment, then said quietly, "Next time, do not laugh when someone is standing alone." The vendor nodded, shame on his face. They walked on, and the market's light wrapped around them. And for the first time the banners overhead felt less like decoration and more like witness. As they reached a quieter street, Leora tugged Jalen's hand and pointed up at the sky where the station rings glinted like silver halos. "Do humans have a word?" she asked softly. "For someone who stays." Yalen looked up too, and his voice came out rough with feeling. "We do," he said. "What word?" Leora whispered. Yalen swallowed, then answered. "Family," he said. Leora's eyes widened, then softened, and her smile grew, bright as the last sun in the alley. "Then you are my family," she said, and her voice shook, and she did not try to hide it. Yalen felt his chest tighten so hard he thought he might break, but he did not. He just breathed and let the feeling exist. He nodded once. "And you are mine," he said, "behind them." Somewhere in the sanctuary district, doors were closing, records were being hunted. People were panicking because the daylight had reached them. Ahead of them, the market breathed, alive, imperfect, but awake. And in the middle of it, a tiny alien girl held a human's hand like it was the most natural truth in the universe. When they passed a group of children playing near a fountain, the children stared at Leora, then at Yalen. Then one child asked, curious, "Is he really your protector?" Leora lifted her chin and answered with pride. "Why, she said, and she glanced up at Yalen, as if daring the universe to challenge it again. Yalen felt the last of the day's fear drain out of him, replaced by something steady and dangerous in a new way. Hope, because the city had laughed, and the city had tried to take her, and the city had built a cage with soft words, and still she had spoken. Still he had stood still. The daylight had won one small battle. They kept walking into the warm evening, and the sound of the market followed them like music, not laughter now, listening.